This episode is sponsored by the Bridge to Recovery, a nonprofit program on 115 acres near Bowling Green, Kentucky, a tranquil place where they've been changing lives for over 40 years. Their people improve their quality of life by acknowledging past emotional wounds and healing from all forms of trauma. The CEO, Paul Hamlin, has been a friend of mine for 20 years. Call him directly at 858-945-7848. That's 858-945-7848. Or you can learn more about the Bridge to Recovery by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting thebridgetorovery.com. Thank you for listening to The Path to Authenticity. My name's Tom Gentry. I think of this show as the opposite of small talk. You'll hear real conversations with real people who know who they are. We talk about what makes them who they are, how they became who they are, and how we might become truer expressions of who we are.
I'm Sarey Ruden, and this is The Path to Authenticity.
All right. Thanks for listening. I'm Tom Gentry. This episode features my conversation with the artist and graphic designer Sarey Ruden. Now, before we go any further, take a minute. If you're not familiar with Sarey Tales, Sarey's work, do yourself a favor, go to her website. It's sareytales.com. SareyTales.com. There's a link in the show notes. Look at her work. You can also visit her Instagram page at Sarey Tales. Again, SareyTales. And check out her work. Take a couple minutes, go through her site. And it'll give you a little bit better context of this conversation. So a few years ago, I was on a dating app. I came across this profile. It intrigued me because it said something like, if you want to know what I'm all about, visit my Instagram page. And it was at Sarey Tales. What the hell? I'll check it out. And oh my God, I couldn't believe. I was appalled at the abuse that this woman has gotten from complete strangers. It's crazy. Just couldn't believe it. But, I was also inspired because, art can come from some of the darkest, ugliest places. And this is an example of that. It's in that aspect of this is inspiring, here's this single woman who over time began to accumulate these messages that she got from men in the world of online dating, just terrible messages. And she turned it into art. She found a way to take something ugly, something terrible, and turn it into something good. So, something Barack Obama said back in 2016, in response to the ascent of Donald Trump to the presidency, he said, Donald Trump is not the problem. Donald Trump is a symptom of the problem. There's this powerful undercurrent of hostility in this country. And I agree. I agree with President Obama. Donald Trump isn't the problem. He's a symptom of the problem. And I think these troubling messages that Sarey gets from men, strangers, it's another symptom of the problem. So you're going to hear what Sarey and I have to say about all the different aspects of this problem, but I want to hear your ideas. I want to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to ask that you email the show. If this matters to you, if this is something you're interested in, email the show, thepathtooauthenticity@gmail.com. If you've had similar experiences, I want to hear about it. If you have thoughts on why this happens or what we can do about it, I want to hear about it. I want to hear from you. Or if you're a guy who's acted this way, who's behaved this way, if you have something you can add to the conversation, email me. And what I'd really like to do is, take your feedback, your comments, and share them on another episode. Maybe we can get Sarey to come back and take part in that. I think that would be really cool because, part of what I'm doing here with this podcast is I want to create a community. I want to connect. So please, if this matters to you, thepathtooauthenticity@gmail.com. Drop a line. When I started working on this podcast from the very beginning, I knew I wanted to talk to Sarey. And, I'm really happy and grateful that she's given me this opportunity. I just think it's so cool what she's doing. But I wanted to talk to her. I knew I wanted to talk to her. One of the things I feel really strongly about is that we have to do a better job of teaching men how to be men in our culture. We're not good at it. And if you've listened to this podcast up to now, you've probably already heard me say this 3 or 4 times. This is something I feel really passionate about. We do not know how to teach men how to be men. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I've lived it. And I work with a lot of young men who get a lot of mixed messages from the men in their life. So, we have a problem there. And it's glaringly obvious when you see the work that Sarey's doing and the interactions that she has that inspire these works of art. It's obvious. We got to do better than this. So that's become a mission for me to try to do something about that, to try to help men be better. So that's something I'm going to be talking about in this podcast. It's, I mentioned early on in the early episodes that aside from just talking to people, about who they are, how they became who they are, how they can, people who can help us become increasingly authentic, that I was going to have some more thematic episodes. And, I want to talk about how men can be more authentic as men, better men. So Sarey's kind of the first guest that I'm bringing into the fold here to begin that conversation. So it was important to me to have this conversation with her, to shine a light on this abusive behavior, because it seems to be relatively common. It's crazy as it is. I mean, I cannot imagine talking to any woman the way that these men who are complete strangers talk to her. And I'm sure there are a lot of women out there experiencing this. It resonates. When I have shared Sarey's Instagram profile with women I know, I mean, they eat it up. A lot of women must experience this. We got to do something about it. And I love that Sarey's doing something about it. So this was recorded in early May. It was recorded the day of the school shooting in Denver. We cover a lot of ground here. I know some of you have been looking forward to hearing this, every bit as much as I've been looking forward to talking to her, and I hope you enjoy it. So here you go. Sarey Ruden. Since there's so much to talk about,
Yeah.
why don't you, before we like really dig into this stuff, just tell me a little bit about yourself, all that.
Sure. So I'm from Detroit, Michigan, grew up in a suburb called Bloomfield Hills, went to University of Michigan, School of Art and Design, and I graduated in 2003 with my BFA in graphic design and a minor in art history. And then I immediately moved to New York with my then boyfriend, who I was with in college, and he was from New York. So I moved out there with him after not knowing what I was doing. And I just ended up being there for about 6.5 years. Always in a relationship. Near the end, I wasn't. And that's when I started doing the dating apps for the first time. I do take that back. I tried it in college at one point, like during a break from a relationship, but whatever. So I've been dabbling in dating apps since their inception, I would say. And when I moved home to Detroit when I moved home to Detroit in late 2009, I was single and on all the dating apps and started getting a ton of ridiculous messages. And I don't know if it was Michigan, if it was my age, if it was just random, or, I don't know why, but I would just start screenshotting them and saving them and showing them to my friends and family. I feel like I went off the path. So you just want to know like my background. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. Let it be natural. It's all right.
So then this, a couple years ago, 2.5 years ago, I received a really terribly cruel message from a guy that I'd actually been on a date with. So it's a little different than the other stuff where they're just messages from strangers. I'd been talking to this man and I don't know what happened, but it ended up that we weren't going to go out on a second date. And I said I wasn't interested. And he wrote me back, "You're an angry, mean, single, drunk loser who will never have children, never contact me again, you whore." And like when he wrote that, it just really it was almost poetic and comical, but cruel. There were all these things. And it was in that moment, like I remember this very vividly. The light bulb went off and I said, I'm going to design this. I'm going to use my, ad agency graphic design background and just start designing, prints out of this text and out of all the other screenshots. I had a collection of about 20 and not just from dating apps, but from ex-boyfriends and random things that I just had saved because that's what I did for some reason and still do. And that's just how it started. I just took these words that were intended to hurt me and they did hurt me. But when I remember the moment when I laid them out in Illustrator and I looked at the words in a scripty font and I just started laughing and I was like, what? Like it just something, I don't know, something just made sense. And I was like, this is incredible. Like not the design, but just the idea that what he said was now something different than what he intended.
Yeah.
And like I took the power away from it, but kind of just made it better in a way. And it just, I don't know. And then I just started doing it nonstop, like with all these messages I had that I had been saving. And meanwhile, I'm still on the dating app, still single, and to this day, single and on the dating apps. And so it happened organically. And I don't troll. I don't instigate. I've never once messaged the person first. Everything is just as authentic as I can be. Once someone once I do get a message where they're like, will you sit on my face? Then I'll say, why would you say that? Or, I'll reply or engage, but I would never write them first. What's something you want to do to me?
Right.
And then they write me back. Because that's foolish. And I think it's obvious that's not what's going on because otherwise it wouldn't be.
If that was what was going on, I probably wouldn't want to talk to you.
Yeah. No, that's not.
It's always seemed very authentic and genuine. Yeah. Like this is what's really happening.
Yeah, these are first-time messages that are sent to me. And when there's a conversation, and there often is a conversation after that initial message, I always post that to show, show context, because context really does make a difference.
Absolutely.
And I do say things back. Like I'll say you're, inappropriate or whatever I'll say. Yeah. Like I'm not perfect, but I also will never say anything to influence them or instigate or take any material that is, I don't know, feel like not authentic to the experience. So it's really just
goading them. You're not. No. Yeah.
It just, then I'm becoming an internet troll, and that's not what the project's, it wasn't starting out, it wasn't starting out as a project. It was just starting out as me taking these screenshots I'd saved and turning them into something else.
Yeah.
So that's how it started.
So, well, and you came to call it the art of online dating, which is, it's really funny too. It is. I mean, it's, but it's not, it's kind of like the first time I saw, Pulp Fiction in the movies. Yeah. To me, culturally, that was a little different than any other movie I'd ever seen. And one of the things that really troubled me about that experience was the scene where they're in the car and John Travolta accidentally blows the guy's brains out in the back seat, yet I'm laughing hysterically.
Right. And it feels
and it's
wrong.
This same kind of yuck.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, thank you. What a lovely comparison. I'm flattered.
Well, good. But, one thing I think might be important to touch on is, I mean, I am just shocked in general with social media and the anonymity factor that emboldens people to be abusive. Yep. I mean, especially around politics. I mean, like I was on Instagram this morning and I had somebody who I don't know, obviously. I mean, who knows where the hell they even are.
Right.
But I commented on a post that the Washington Post did a couple days ago, commenting on the irony of something that, I'll let your mind wander. And this guy just said, LOL, you sound really stupid. And it's like, it hurts.
It's a free for all.
Yeah, it is a free for all. And just in the beginning, there's all that.
Mm-hmm. There's so many layers of unpacking. It's like, that's why it's such a deep, rich, textured conversation, not just the stuff that we're talking about, me and you, but just social media in general and why people behave the way they behave. And it's kind of like would they behave this way if there wasn't social media, or did we always act this way, but we didn't know about it because there wasn't social media? It's kind of the chicken or the egg. And I just think it's very crazy. And there's definitely college courses that are, it's like in sociology or human behavior. Like this is like really interesting information that we can, scrape from the internet based on this type of interaction.
Yeah. And one of the posts I did to promote my podcast where I mentioned you, I said something about, this could like kind of save the world, I mean, like, I really think this is one of those things that like, we need to pay attention to this stuff because to me,
thank you.
Well, and to me, what this really illustrates is all the distress. Because, men don't just, I mean, people who are okay don't do stuff like this. And if it wasn't coming out this way, they would be kicking their dog.
It would be some other way. I totally agree. This is like the tip of the iceberg or the little part. This is the only part that we see, but there's so much stuff going on and building up, and it's manifesting itself in different ways.
Absolutely.
And this is just one of those ways.
It is. And, to me, this is a dramatic expression of it that, if when guys see this, they should be appalled. And, just to consider how this kind of stuff would affect anyone, a woman, emotionally, to get an inbox message. Like, I wanted to go through your site before we started talking and kind of remind myself of
some of the classics.
Yeah, yes. And I think this one is my favorite. It's a series of messages that you got that starts with, I'm a nice guy. Hi.
Oh, yes.
How are you doing?
I know the one.
There's something, I know you are doing something wrong with your life. bitch, I hope you die. Then next day, how's your day?
Yep.
And then I am sorry.
Yep.
I mean,
so that, it's funny you picked out that one, because that is actually, like, if you could put into, there's so many ways that this abuse happens online, and there's so many messages that women and men get. There's the sexually exploitative stuff, there's the disregarded boundaries, there's just the mean stuff, there's the hostile stuff, there's violence. There's this kind of, I think, embodies all of that. It's the I didn't get a response, like first nice guy,
right.
Ignoring, not getting a response, violence, threats, and then apology. You see that all, and that's with no. I'm not.
Yeah, you didn't even respond.
I didn't remove my conversation. Like, that is what he wrote,
right,
in response to himself, and that's frightening. Yeah. I mean, regardless of whether he meant the death threat or not, let's say he was just like who knows, saying it to get a reaction. I actually, when I did post that one, a lot of women who follow me on Instagram who live in the area where I live in Detroit messaged me and said, I've gone out with this guy. They shared their messages. We confirm it's the same guy. And they said he was not well. They went out to dinner and he was weird and seemed unhinged. So this guy actually probably does have some issues. I don't know, but
which is oddly reassuring that at least this guy's crazy.
Right. He's crazy, but he's also out there dating people and people are going out with him.
Yeah.
And that's, that's
alarming.
Frightening. Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking about like words that would describe the inspiration for your artwork, and probably the best one that has come to mind is menacing.
You mean like the that describes the work, or describes
not the work? No, what compels the work? I mean, all these messages, and and again, just going back over this stuff, I just wanted to kind of wrap my head around. So the themes that emerge from all these messages that you're getting, and then turning into art. I mean, the recurrent themes are, well, first of all, it's full of judgment.
Yes.
And it's rife with misogyny.
Yes, always.
Often anti-Semitism.
Yep.
And just intolerance of all kinds, but especially politically motivated intolerance.
Those are really good. Those are the key ones. I would say it's just more or less not getting the reaction they expect or think they're entitled to sets off any one of those reactions. When I don't react in the way that they think, when I don't answer, or if I answer in a way that they don't think is the right answer, then that's what happens.
They go straight into criticism where you see words like libtard and...
Oh, I mean, that's nothing. That's like that's very, very pleasant.
Yes.
And they're men, they're all ages, and, maybe it's naive of me to think, but I get messages from 60-year-olds that called me liberal turds. And then I'm thinking, you know what? They were probably like that when they were 21. So people don't change. If they're 61, they're going to still act like an idiot. But it's just, those are the key themes. I used to organize them based on themes, and I recently have been doing a reorg of my work to kind of organize them based more on the arts. But there's tales of misogyny, tales of toxic masculinity, tales of religion, tales of food, because food just comes out a lot. Tales of fetishes, and then tales of age. Age is a really, really big one. That's also a go-to. Criticism.
Oh, yeah, like telling you you're expiring. Yep,
I'm going to expire. My eggs are expiring. I don't have, basically saying my value is so low because I'm 38 that my standards should be lower. Right. Meanwhile, which I don't know how that makes sense, because that means, all right, so now if I like you, that means I lowered my standards. So it just, the logic doesn't really make sense.
No.
But the age is a big thing. And I get it. It's an easy thing. I just talked about that guy's age. So he's 61. So people can judge for age, but it's only when they bring out the age card when they don't get the response they want.
Well, this is how they're responding to rejection.
Exactly. Which is juvenile and not, effective. I mean, I'm obviously not going to say, "Oh, let's go out now." So I don't think their intention is to go out. I mean, clearly,
not.
I think their intention, their intention is just to get a reaction, to maybe have some sort of conversation, and maybe it'll be funny for them.
Well, to me, it's like almost by definition just abusive. I mean, it's emotional abuse is what it is.
It's emotional terrorism is what I refer to it as. Mm-hmm. It's, and I'm lucky where I feel like I do have an outlet and I'm confident and I take it in stride and now I just kind of laugh. But I feel like most people probably don't have that ability. And unfortunately, I feel like they get messages like this and maybe they take it personally, or maybe it does affect their day, or change something about themselves, or maybe they give in and try to, tell this person, "Oh, I'm not really like that. Give me a chance." Like, who knows? And I just can't. And that's the part that is really, worrisome for me, is that I just feel like people are reacting to this. Like the men must send messages like this because it works enough times. Like
you think so?
I have to think so. It seems impossible, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, to me, it's just about being emotionally out of balance.
Abusive.
Well, yeah, and because think about it. The functional way to deal with rejection is to feel it and be sad. And, grieve whatever there is to grieve. And then you move on.
Right.
Oh, that's too bad. She wasn't interested. She seemed pretty great. Not to see you next Tuesday. And right. I mean, come on,
Absolutely. And you know how many times I've been rejected? When I do message guys, I don't get responses often.
Yeah.
And I've never messaged them back and said, "What's wrong with me?" Or you move on. There's nothing personal about it. Yeah. It's just, you can't take that personally. So it blows my mind that is the response that men give often. It seems like more often than not.
Well, and okay, so then you go a layer deeper. I mean, the whole reason they're there in the first place is because they're pretty lonely.
Well, but couldn't you say that about me?
Well, of course, I'm not differentiating, but I'm saying, this is a basic human need that they're trying to meet. Right. And then, when they get rejection, this is how they're dealing with it. I mean,
right. And rejection on the most, I think, superficial level.
Right. It's not like it's a deep rejection. I mean, we're talking about
someone you have no investment to, someone you don't know, just move on.
Right.
There's zero reason to instigate any type of,
confrontation. Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's just so stupid.
I mean,
but it's like, well, here's another thing. So, I don't know. I guess what I want to say is a man wants to feel like a man. And if he doesn't have the kind of life that enables him to feel like a man, he's going to create some sort of emotional BS replacement. You know what I mean? It's using that sort of, the toxic masculine sort of energy, right? Just expressing it somehow. And I mean, I guess what I'm really getting at is it boils down to insecurity.
I think what you're saying is leading me to where I think a bigger conversation is with politics and Trump and how and why Trump got elected. And I don't know your politics. I think I might know, but I don't know, and I don't need to. But I think Trump got elected because of a lot of white men's insecurities. And I maybe that's that. I mean, I know that's probably totally naive and maybe a little ignorant and totally making it more simplified than it is. But I think the root of it is that white men feel like they're being taken advantage of, passed over, emasculated and want to take that power back. And it's an insecurity, what you were saying.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think I would. I'd be pretty inclined to agree with you. You know, I mean, listen. So I grew up in a town in Indiana, which is probably, I mean,
pretty red.
Some people call it Little Detroit. I mean, a lot of factories, working class, bars everywhere, but also family oriented, mostly white. I mean, I went to a pretty big high school and it was about 30% African American, but you know, I mean, it's like anywhere else you go in this country, there's a certain part of town where they live. I mean, because that's what they did, the city fathers, when they created that city, just like they did all over the country, which, you know, just the idea that there's no such thing as institutional racism in this country is so ludicrous. If you pay attention at all to how we live our lives in this country, how can you deny it, you know? But I guess to me, and I, you know, being a counselor, I mean, I've had not a lot, but a fair amount of training around cultural competency.
Okay.
Enough to have a better understanding of race than I think probably most white guys my age do.
Okay.
You know, so I, you know, at this point, having experienced that kind of stuff, I can pretty confidently say, you know, I grew up among a bunch of people who see white America disappearing and aren't okay with that. Like, you know, black is basically a synonym for bad when I grew up. I mean, not entirely. I mean, and like my family, like they tried not to be racist for the most part. I think they tried not to be racist.
They tried their best.
And they don't think of themselves as racist. But I think, I mean, anybody who doesn't think that's why this is happening with the presidents, I mean, they need to get a grip on reality. Like,
yes,
this is like, this guy is trying to bring down the federal government. And that's why these people elected him, because they don't like where it's going. They, you know,
100%.
And now he's like, I mean, the first thing he does is tell, you know, no Muslims in the country. Then I'm going to shut down the southern border. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is, and it's not the first time anything like this ever happened in our country, but it's alarming that it would happen now. And what is even more alarming to me about it is how it's being co-signed by so many politicians, you know?
I agree with you.
It just makes me really, really mad. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think that is trickling down to every aspect of our lives, social media, dating, how, you know, everything.
Oh, yeah.
So
it has, that also has emboldened people to be abusive.
Empowered.
Because he's abusive. He is abusive.
Yes. And I have a whole series on Trump and things that Trump says, because it's the same concept. It's things that guys say in his tweets. So there's so many parallels. You know, I don't know if that's why what I'm doing now started. It coincided with his election and it was just a coincidence, but I think there was some sort of energy. There's something going on.
Well, it's releasing something. Something.
It was momentum or cultural something that just allowed this to happen.
Well, and what I really hope is happening is that this is all coming to the surface and being exposed so that it can be washed out. And
that's what...
I think it is. I mean, I really believe it is. I mean, maybe that's just me trying to stay hopeful.
Well, I think it's coming to the surface. I think there's a lot more flushing that needs to happen. But absolutely, I think if there's something good that has come from this, is like when Trump was elected, I was shocked more than anything because I just had dumbfounded.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way. Everyone I knew was not voting for him, obviously. So when he was elected, it's like, obviously people are voting for him, and it was a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we need so that now things can start to rebuild. Because you can't rebuild if you don't know what's broken.
Well, and, you know, I could go on and on about this stuff forever. I enjoy talking about it. But, you know, the real problem is nobody votes.
Yeah.
I mean, not enough
Low
people
turnout.
vote. There's always a really low turnout. So now he got people out to vote. I mean, people
Right.
voted.
So that's all it took.
So,
Right.
you know, and I am encouraged that, like, all these kids, after what happened down here at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, I mean, yeah, they're pissed. Like, they're not having it. And
was that near you?
Oh yeah, that's in Broward County. That's
that was.
Yeah,
What was that? 2 years ago or a year?
Well, it was a year ago on Valentine's Day.
Right. And didn't something else just happen today? Like, I was just at the gym and on the TV, it just said mass shooting in Denver. I feel like.
I don't know. That it's sad that it's so hard to keep track of.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's insane that I didn't even like register really, but there's something else just happened.
Well, and you know, now what's in my mind, I just got an email over the weekend. I have a 13-year-old son, you know, he's in 7th grade. And I mean, you know, I was picking him up from school as I found out about what was going on at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. And we listened on the radio together. He had been to that school to an event. I mean, wow. You know, it's like really close. Like, you know, he was like once removed from all these kids.
Yeah, he probably knew some of them. I'm sure he had friends that knew them.
Yes. And, you know, I mean, and just like, I guess it was about a month and a half ago. I mean, he has a cell phone. Most kids his age have cell phones now. I drop him off at school. As soon as I get home, like 20 minutes later, I get a text from him saying, you know, we're on code red.
Oh my God.
And, you know, and then 2 minutes later, I'm okay, you know, but, you know, come to find out, the police had went to apprehend someone at his house, like a half mile away from his school. He made a run for it, ran through the schoolyard.
Oh my God.
The school was in. I mean, and he had, they did a good job of handling it, actually. I mean, but he's in a closet off the gymnasium huddled in a corner with a group of kids covering their heads with backpacks.
Isn't that, it's got chills.
That's what happened. And
how do you even handle that as a parent?
He's afraid to go to school. Yeah. How I handled it? What I did, I mean, because, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty tuned in emotionally, and I'm really careful about what I teach my son and how I respond to his emotional, you know, experiences. But like, he asked me if I would come get him, and I was like, absolutely, I'm on my way. Yeah. You know, and I knew everything was okay. I had spoken to the office and found out what happened, and they told me everything's okay. You can come get him if you want. But I went to get him because I knew he would be invalidated if I didn't. I knew he was scared.
That's so smart.
And I knew he would be invalidated. And you know what the first thing he said to me when we got in the car was, as tears began rolling out of his eyes, they're acting like this is no big deal.
Oh my God. That's the worst thing to hear.
Like everything's okay now. Well, and then I could see, you know, it's okay. We can get back to normal. Everything's okay. But no, it's not okay. It's not okay.
And that actually makes it less okay that you're saying it's okay because you're normalizing it.
Right. So yeah. So, you know, I mean, I'm pretty careful with him about that kind of stuff because, you know, it's also not safe for him necessarily to talk about his feelings around people who aren't emotionally balanced enough to deal with it, you know?
Right.
Like, I mean, if he's scared, I mean, I don't want somebody telling them don't be scared.
Right.
I want them to say, I'm sorry you're scared. It must be really, really hard.
Right. But
I would
most
be scared
people
too if I were you. Most people don't
aren't
know how to
equipped.
do that.
Right. Right.
Which to circle back to all of this stuff that you're dealing with in your artwork. To me,
that's a really valid point.
Yeah, I mean, we aren't good with emotions as a culture. We're not. And these guys and listen, I mean, I wasn't always this way. I became this way because I had to, I mean, seriously, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I mean, I come from a family of a lot of heavy drinking and stuff. Mm-hmm. And by the time I was 23 years old, I was a mess. And I had to stop and I had to get help. And, what I quickly figured out is I have to keep trying to improve, and I have to learn how to deal with my emotions. I have to figure this stuff out and learn how to handle this, or else I'm going to, or else.
Good for you. I mean, most people don't have the wherewithal to, let alone a 20-something-year-old guy to have that awareness. Yeah. So good for you.
So, but I've kept working at it, and, it pretty quickly became a thing where, that's my career went in that direction too, Mm-hmm. And so now it's turned into, really my interest in working with men specifically. I mean, I always have, just being a guy, but, it kind of went to another level going through a divorce.
Yeah.
Because,
that's the epitome of every emotion probably you could ever feel, and failure and insecurity and all that stuff is probably, a divorce is the epitome of that, I would imagine.
What happened is we ended up meeting with this therapist who was very well versed in men's issues. And he started helping me see how I wasn't showing up as a man. And I was basically abdicating my power I was being passive. I wasn't being decisive. I was, I could sit back and say, oh yeah, she's controlling, but what was I doing? I wasn't showing up in certain ways.
Right.
Yeah. So that really kind of changed how I started looking at all this stuff. And I started learning more about what has happened with men in Western culture over the last couple hundred years, really,
Yeah. That's actually interesting. I never really thought of that as a study, but that would explain knowing that background and that the trends and why things happen. And that would help explain why things are how they are now. I'm sure. Obviously you have that knowledge though.
Well, so one of the things that I've come to learn is that, I don't want to go too deep into all this stuff because I could talk forever just about this, but I believe, and, from what I've read and, where I've kind of gone with it, what I believe is that it all kind of started with the Industrial Revolution, which was when men started working outside the home.
You mean women?
No, men. Well, both, but men were farmers and carpenters and tradesmen and did things at home. They had, they worked at home, and they trained their sons. The silversmith trained his son to also be a silversmith. And, that's how it went. So boys grew up next to their fathers.
Right.
And then everything changed when they started making a living outside the home. And then, most of the, child rearing sort of attention that boys then started getting was from their mothers who, and not to say that's bad or anything, but a woman doesn't know what it's like to be a man or to be a boy and teach a boy how to be a man, really. I mean, just like I wouldn't know how to teach a little girl how to be a woman, so, and it kind of, it kind of, that to me is in what I believe. And I didn't come up with the idea myself, but I think that's really when things started to change.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I've never heard that theory, and I'm not, I like hearing new ideas. But I feel like wasn't the child rearing was always the woman, regardless of whether the man was there or not. They were, let's say back in ancient times, like the man was hunting and the woman was gathering and child rearing.
But he took the little boys with him and taught them how to hunt when they became old enough, Yeah, no, absolutely.
No, I'm sure there's a ton of, I haven't studied it at all, and I'm curious to know. It's obvious that you've been studying and reading and you know some other stuff. So it's an interesting theory, I guess. And it does make sense.
Well, I mean, at somewhere, something's missing with men.
Women aren't perfect either, but
no, of course not. But, I mean, I really think like when men are treating women this way, I mean, that's not okay. It's not. And all the stuff that's come out with the Me Too movement, and which honestly, like, again, it's being uncovered. Like, I'm glad because it's like nothing new. It's just, it's no longer as tolerated as it used to be.
That's exactly what it is. Nothing's changed except for our tolerance and our awareness.
Right.
It's always been there. But that's how behavior changes. Like there has to be consequences. There has to be, exposure.
Well, and
people don't even know.
And you think about it, like that's where some of the anger's coming from too, because this privilege that is men, and specifically white men that we have experienced, it is diminishing. It's disappearing. It's going away. And think about it, like I mean, and I think really, like I told you, I have 5 sisters. Growing up with a mother and 5 sisters, I mean, I've never really been averse to powerful women. I mean, they're all really powerful in their own ways.
Right.
They're not, not like corporate women or anything like that. But, I mean, when you're.
But again, that's the patriarch's, personification of power. Like, is powerful and they're powerful in their home life or in their careers in other ways or their
like
personalities.
With my sisters, it's just like, you wouldn't want to be on the business end of them, I mean, and they don't bite their tongue. Like they're not afraid to say what's on their mind. I mean, not all women are like that. I mean, there's nothing mousy about any of my sisters, Well,
I think that you should consider yourself lucky. Obviously it was a privilege to grow up with that type of female energy.
Absolutely. And, being the youngest that probably helped too, because it all kind of trickled down,
Yeah. You didn't have a chance.
Yeah. But, honestly, I can say like having been in, the workforce and different like corporate like environments, that, there definitely is the, undercurrent of, wow, she's in charge and she must really be a bitch.
Absolutely.
What I mean, that's, and to just pretend like that doesn't exist, or it's just, I mean, come on.
That's 100%. I mean, it's almost cliche at this point to say the woman is a bitch, but the guy is assertive. Like it's in our language. We don't even realize that it's in the way we describe people. Yeah, and it's and that's just kind of marginalization too. Mm-hmm. I mean, you think about the stereotypical African-American angry man. Right. Well, man, you know what? If I grew up the way they did, I'd be mad too. Yeah. I would. I'd be mad. Like, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's
That is just what baffles me about politics now, is that, you know, most people are just so brainwashed. Yet you have these men telling you you're brainwashed.
Yeah, it's
pretty often, right? I mean, it seems like it from what I see.
Pretty much, it's nonstop. All I say in my profile is, please don't contact me if you voted for Trump. And maybe that's closed-minded of me. I just think it's me knowing what I will and will not tolerate. But basically, that's what many messages about, saying how I'm brainwashed. I'm a crybaby snowflake crying about what bathrooms people can use. I'm a libtard. I don't know my place. It's a man's world. And it goes from like the pretty offensive to the totally absurd. And it's just, and every single time I get a message like that, I guess, before I read their profile, their education. And maybe this is totally not PC, and I'm sure there are brilliant people that didn't go to college. I know there are. Like, it happens. They are high school educated white men. That is 99% of the time the people that are saying this to me. And that's, I don't know. Unfortunately, it's just not surprising, but that's who it is. It's people that maybe they feel insecure, they feel emasculated, they have to prove something, they're sick of feeling like they're not good enough. I don't know.
Well, you know, I mean, one of the things that stands out to me about, you know, when I see your posts, which generally, you know, there's the artwork that you created, and then there's the inspiration for it, the screenshots of whatever was said, but it is like full of misspellings and grammatical errors. I mean, everywhere.
Yeah, that's the first message you sent me. I mean, that is a whole, agree. That's a whole nother series on its own. I used to have a series on misspellings. Listen, I'm not perfect. Everyone has typos. I'm not talking about typos. Like, people can have a typo where there's obviously you're texting on a phone, and I hate when people call that out, say, "Oh, that's bad grammar." There's a difference between poor grammar and a typo. I understand typos. When you're misspelling there, to, you know, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like, I'm not talking about adding an extra, yeah, all those. Like, then like that, I mean, unfortunately, there's so many other bad things in what they say that the grammar is the least of it, but it's just nice to have that as a reference. I mean, I definitely, obviously, put that up there so people can just know this is who is speaking. Yeah, and
I mean, just to me, it's like, we already knew you were stupid because of the content of what you're saying.
Right, but now you're proving it.
Right.
Without a doubt.
Right.
No, it's just, you know, it's a little, you know, obviously I'm a little evil. I kind of like it when there's all those typos. I'm like, this is perfect. And then often I won't, and it's very hard in the artwork to not correct it because I want it to be grammatically correct, but there's a certain, like, I don't know, some quirkiness of just leaving all the typos. This is what they wrote, and that's what it is.
Okay, so, you know, there's also this dick pic thing where, now let me, so did you like have the photographs cast into, what did you do? Well, you know what I'm talking about.
What I did was I received my first actual real dick pic from a dating app about a year ago, last summer. And I was just as jaded as I am and experienced as I am in online dating and getting these abusive messages. There was just something about it that obviously is I couldn't understand. He was messaging me. I didn't respond. Eventually I said I was interested. And then he sent me a dick pic. And then he said, oops, sorry. And the whole thing was just a disaster. So from that point, I'm like, I need to do something with this. And I just decided to take this picture that he sent as a 2-dimensional flat picture, but it really invaded my space. Like, that's the whole point. Like, it's flat. It's, you know, it's not real, but it's in my psyche. So I, started molding them, these penises, these UDPs I received from polymer clay, like Sculpey, that I just picked up at Michael's. And then, so that's what the actual penis is made out of.
So
and I baked
you
them.
made the penises?
Yes. Yeah. I didn't realize
God.
I had like a latent talent. I never sculpted before in my life. And I'm like, I'm really good at making penises.
Yeah. Wow.
And then I reached out to another local artist in the Detroit area who cast them in this acrylic, like lucite type substrate, like that cube. Yeah. So I wanted them to be suspended in space.
Right.
So he put them in those, but the molds are my handiwork.
Wow. And then now, did you have them delivered to the perpetrators?
No.
homes?
So that was all part of my...
what did I see? What was that?
That was my April Fool's joke, but it was a joke within a joke because, part of the project is true in that I made molds and artwork out of the dick pics. I did not send them back to the people for a few reasons. One is that they're very expensive, so I'm not doing that. Second, two of them were submissions from other people, so I don't even know where these... I had submissions from Australia, from Qatar, from all over the U.S. It was insane. But the idea behind it was that the reaction that these men, anecdotally would have to receiving a dick pic, be it their own dick pic, a dick statue in their home, is how I imagine that's how we feel.
Right.
You're drinking your coffee. You are minding your own business. You are not in a consensual conversation with somebody where you asked to receive this dick pic. Right. So I think that was the whole point, is that it kind of to spark conversation. Yes, it was an April Fool's joke, but I really think that the concept that it's based on is what people were reacting to, and because it is relatable. And I would like to say I am starting to promote it as April Fool's 2020. So starting next year, I want it to be known as National Return to Sender Day, where people just, you have to make a sculpture, because I realize most people are not going to do that. But maybe that's the day you send back the dick pic to the sender. Right. And that's just what April Fool's Day becomes.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So, what has been the most noteworthy of all these interactions that you have? Are there a couple that just really stand out to you?
You mean as far as the interactions with the men, like the conversations?
That have spurned this artwork. Like,
I don't know. Each one, it's like I'm not a parent. I don't have kids, but I feel like each piece I create is like a little baby that I love and then eventually learn to hate. But I have a special relationship with each of the messages, because I really think it is about me in a narcissistic way. Like, I choose to create art from the messages that resonate with me. Mm-hmm. So I take submissions, and often they're amazing, but lots of times they're not. And not because they're not great messages that people were sent, but because they don't resonate with me.
Right.
So it's really, just a lot of the ones about abortion and reproductive rights those really impact me a lot, and those are hard to get through and hard to read, but I really feel like the message behind those is important to share. So I have a series about reproductive rights and the fact that it's our choice and it's our space. The series is called Lacuna, which means like a space that you take up. Mm-hmm. And this is our body to, control, and not anyone else's. So it kind of, I don't know. I mean, each series I work on, it kind of, I guess, is a different facet of what I believe in, or what I hope to see change. A lot of the mental disability, mental disorder type stuff really strikes a chord with me. The anti-Semitism, it's shitty, but like that, that's just like, it's almost a cliche. Like,
when they say, "Did you take your medication today?" and that kind of stuff?
Yes, exactly.
Like when they
sound
imply
bipolar.
that you're mentally ill.
Exactly. Because or when they say like, you're crazy, or don't be so dramatic. Like that. And those are deeper rooted symptoms, right? Like, if someone expresses emotion, there's something wrong with you, which kind of goes back to what you were saying with men not knowing how to express emotion or to cope or to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Like, they associate that with weakness.
Right.
So that's there. Like, and then like the stuff I do that's more like truly like sexual. That's more, it's fun. And I'm sure there's some other way to interpret it, but like I tear that butt up, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah,
that was just like a crappy pickup line. And, I'm sure I could dissect it and come up with some of the reason he said it, but I'm pretty sure he just wanted to tear the butt up.
Yeah,
so a lot of them are just, not everything has a deeper meaning. But the ones that I try to make into series are more like, I don't know, I'm trying to tell a bigger story, I guess.
So, what are the, like greeting cards?
Yeah.
Or you do prints? What is available
I do everything
to be obtained?
I sell on my Etsy shop, and then at various boutiques throughout the country. I have little pop-up situations where I have like cards available, but I have greeting cards, prints, so digital reproductions, gift wrap, stickers, and I think that's it. But they're fun for basically more like novelty gifts, or like it's always somebody has a connection to something. Like they've been told, either they've been told that, or they told that to somebody. And I think that's kind of part of the fun of all of it, because it is so terrible and disgusting. But then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm giving this to somebody. So it's kind of like a little like, I don't know. I feel like people feel like it's like a naughty thing, but it's also like an empowering thing. And I think that's what people like about it. So, it's fun. My favorite is when I'm going to art fairs or events and I have all my art out and I have bins where people can just, rifle through my old stuff, new stuff, and they just dig through it and they're just cracking up looking at all these different messages. And you said this, or remember that guy who said that? Like everyone has heard some iteration of this garbage.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun to just see it turned into a piece of art, I think.
Yeah, it is. And, I have to tell you, like, I think I told you that I forwarded your Instagram profile probably to many people over the last couple of years.
I appreciate it. I didn't know the years part. I thought, so you just reached out to me a few weeks ago and you've been following me for years?
Yeah. I mean, I've been following you ever since I first.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
thank
no.
you.
Yeah, no. I mean, I love creativity. I mean, I'm a creative person and,
I appreciate
I've always been fascinated by artists. And, I mean, there's just, to me, it is very empowering what you're doing. I mean, and
thank you.
And I can't help but, I really, I guess maybe some people might call me an idealist, but I think, this is the kind of thing that changes the world.
I mean, that I may have to quote you on that. I know you wrote that in one of your posts. It was incredibly humbling and flattering. But I mean, thank you for even saying that.
No, well, I mean, you think about it in history. I mean, that's kind of the role that art has had.
Well, it's
many times, and
yeah,
and I think this is, I feel like you're on the leading edge of something here that. Because the bottom line is we can do better than this. We should be able to do better than this.
Yes. I think that is agreed. Agreed. I'm in my living room right now, and I guess my place is a little bit of a shrine to myself, which is creepy, but I just don't know where else to put all my art. So it's hanging on the walls.
Well,
so I'm just looking at.
I mean, isn't that what artists do? I mean,
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't have a boyfriend, so I feel like people come in, they take one look, and they're out of here. But it is what it is. But yeah, it makes me feel good to see it. Like I feel like I see these words, and they don't have the power that the person who sent them intended.
Oh yeah. Well, and you totally like turn the tables on these people. And you're owning the power of whatever.
Exactly. I'm owning the insults.
The negative
I'm owning
into a positive. Yeah.
Well, that was what initially when I started this, it was my tagline, if you'll call it that, was ugly into art. And it's still something I use, but then it became more of the art of online dating.
Right.
Just whatever. But it is. It's the catharsis, and it's that alchemy
that
of turning something into something else. And everyone has these experiences. Everyone has received these messages. And it's nice, I think, people react to the fact that somebody's doing something about it, even in a little way like this. The people who get it really get it.
Yeah. So
that's been nice.
So, I mean, I know what kind of response I've gotten from like friends of mine. Like even I was telling a couple different women about it today that I was going to be talking to you tonight, and they just love the idea of, well, they really do. I mean, it makes people happy to think about it.
Yeah.
It really does.
That makes me happy to hear. So thank you. But I think it's a little evil laugh in your head. Cause it is devilish,
a little bit. Yeah. There's a little bit of the inner brat coming out. Oh, I'll show you. Kind of, right?
Well, absolutely. And like my family can attest to that. I'm a jerk.
Oh.
So no, but there's a little bit of a like, haha, like I showed you type of thing, maybe retribution, and maybe that's how it even started. In fact, when I started doing this, there was absolutely nothing other than me saying, I want to make these guys look like idiots. And
well, you don't have to do anything to.
Well, right.
They've done it themselves.
They're anonymous, right. But it's just now it's turned into more of a, I don't know, it does feel good every time I finish something that I feel like I can't explain it really. Just when I make something out of these words, I just feel like I made a difference. Like just in my own, like when I'm doing it, I feel good. And I've never felt that way about anything I've really done. So for me personally, that's all that matters.
Well, and see, to me, just to kind of circle back to the idea of authenticity, that's how you know
that you're on the right path,
that you're
right?
on the right path. That it feels good and it feels right, and it's you.
No, that's it's funny. I didn't intend for that. This is happening organically, but your podcast, "The Path to Authenticity," that's when I started doing this. When I told you the anecdote from the beginning, when I sat down and I've never felt like I was doing the right thing, or I love my work. I love design. I've always been in the creative industry, but it just felt like work, and it actually felt like it felt like magical, and that's the only way I can explain it. And I knew that I was doing something right, and I didn't know what it was going to become. And it felt like a no-brainer. Like, I'm like, this is it. And it made me happy. It was,
that's great.
So it's very strange. It's evolved, obviously, but I'm happy with the path that this has taken me.
Okay, so have any of these men ever come back to you, and have you gotten any repercussions from any of this stuff?
Not yet. In person, no. I am waiting for the day when a guy comes up, because I do local art fairs in the Detroit area. I would imagine at some point somebody will see something. I would hope that would be kind of cool. But But on dating apps, I've had men message me like a year later, the same message, and then I'll reply to them, you sent me this a year ago, and they try to deny it. And then I say, I have this text and I have this piece of art. It really hasn't been negative. I mean, I've gotten I think there's a few people that follow me that are ill-intentioned, that send me random dick pics just to be like dicks.
Yeah.
But it's even like men and women, whoever sees it and hears the story, generally are very supportive and accepting and like into it.
That's good.
Yeah, it's been fairly positive. So,
what's the big picture for this? Where do you see this going? What do you want to happen?
Such a hard question. I guess one part is definitely an art book of some sort, and that's where the art of online dating kind of happened about a year ago when we were speaking earlier, I think before we were recording, but just an art book. But more, I mean, I'm not a writer at all, so it would be art-based, but I would love for this to be kind of a commentary on dating in the internet age and during the age of Trump. I just think there's so much that can be done with this. And that's what I'm in the background. That's always going on, sending out my proposal and pitching it and whatnot. But I'm really just hoping, I would love to do like a pop-up gallery that's just my stuff. Like I have work in galleries and in shows and exhibitions and art fairs, but I want to be a totally immersive experience where it was just my stuff. And maybe it's audio as well. You know, it could be all, like maybe people are talking the text messages. I just think it really needs to, people need to go in there and experience this and be inundated with what it feels like to get these messages. So maybe that's too, I don't know. I don't know what my big picture is. I want to keep doing this, and I feel like I want to keep exploring different mediums. And the issue is the messages. I have a collection probably of close to 5,000. So I'm not short of content, but it's almost like I always am looking for new content. Just as, you know, you want like new clothes. Like
yeah, absolutely.
you have a great shirt you can wear you've never worn, or you can buy a brand new shirt.
Well,
but it also
it's the creative thing too. You gotta
feed the beast.
Yeah, and you need the juice, you know.
Yeah, right. So it's just, but I do, or it's interesting because when I know something's good, like I'll take a screenshot and catalog it, and maybe it won't strike a chord, or maybe this year I'm not going to feel it, but in a year I might say, you know what, I'm going to do a series about XYZ, and this is the content I need. So I know eventually it'll come and be used, but usually it's just when I get them, something is inspired, or it inspires me, and then I get going.
Okay, so I want to ask you one last question. So,
yep.
In terms of responses to people who've encountered your work, has there been a celebrity, or what's the coolest experience that you've had with that?
Oh boy. So I was co-curating an art exhibit in March, like 2 months ago in San Francisco. It was part of a performance called Nevertheless, which was an interpretive dance and choir ensemble that was all about harassment and catcall street harassment. And I was helping to curate the art gallery portion of it. And they received a handwritten letter from Senator Elizabeth Warren saying that she's proud of the work that we're all doing, and, you know, loves that the message that this event is evoking. So that, I mean, I guess it's a political celebrity.
Oh, yeah. She's pretty important.
Yeah. I mean, so as a team that was pretty great. It's hanging up, her little letters hanging up downstairs in my basement. But no celebrities yet.
So then have you gone out of your way to kind of try to channel your work to get it in front of certain people, or? You
know, I do, like, every now and then, like when I'll tag some of the late night people, like maybe Amy Schumer or Jimmy Kimmel. I also find though, or what I found is that when you try to do that, it doesn't happen. And I don't know, like the mechanics of viral, but someone else has to pitch your work, basically. I feel like, like for me at least, like it's hard for you to pitch your own work. So it's almost like a conflict of interest. Of course, you're pitching your work. People want to hear it from somebody else. So I keep doing what I'm doing, and I really love talking to everybody else that is going through this. The messages I get on a daily basis just from other women and men just thanking me or saying how much they love the work is like more than I ever even imagined. Like it means so much just to hear that people are like getting it and support it and love it. So that to me that's good.
Well, I really meant what I said, when I emailed you a day or two ago about, women want to hear this story, but I think men need to hear this story.
No, that was really well said.
And so, if there's anything that I can do to help, I mean, I want to be able to do it. And I hope that, I really appreciate you investing the time in this. And I hope that, it yields something for you. Really,
Thank you.
I really, really do.
Well,
so
it means so much just to, this is a great conversation. It's nice you're a man. I mean, you're not the enemy, of course, but it's nice to come across somebody that is, gets it and is aware of what's going on and wants to educate people. I mean, that's very rare. So I commend you and I appreciate you.
Well, it's funny because reading through some of the messages that you've gotten, as I'm preparing, I could be the one guy they're describing who actually, you know what I mean?
You mean the liberal guy with no balls who wants
right.
Yeah. I send all those to my brothers and my dad because they're liberal men who are educated. They're the opposite of what all these guys are saying. And it's hilarious.
Well, and it's funny because we're so off course when it comes to masculinity and what it even means in our culture that, in the work that I do around men, I know men who are as gay as the day is long with the lisp and the fingernail polish, the whole 9 yards, who are more masculine than most men. And it has nothing to do with how they dress, how they talk.
That's just
the energy they bring.
That's exactly it.
And that's what we don't get about masculinity, I think. One of the things I talk about is, to me, what's interesting about it is the power aspect of it, because you think about the Harvey Weinsteins and, he abused his power.
Yep.
And there's a lot of that. We see that all the time with men who are in positions of power who abuse it and, victimize women and men, with it. And then we see men at the complete other end of the spectrum who are emasculated and have given up all of their power. And to me, what we need more of are the guys in between.
I was going to say the middle,
the guys who recognize that they have power, they own it, and they use it for good.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Well, I think that's a great note to end this on. Yeah. I think that would help with a lot of the messages and just help overall with the idea of masculinity and what it means.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Sarey, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Tom, it was fantastic. All right, talk to you soon.
All right, there you have it. Sarey Ruden. Now, if you want to hear more, go to my Patreon page. Patreon, patreon.com/thepath-to-authenticity. For, as little as $1. If you become a patron, patrons have access to episodes prior to their general release. I have the full interview that I did with Sarey, and I cut out like 30, 45 minutes. If you want to listen to the whole thing, it's there. Any support is greatly appreciated. You can follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook, both at The Path to Authenticity. And again, email the show. I want to hear any feedback you have about this, any comments, observations, similar experiences. Please, thepath-to-authenticity@gmail.com. So that's it for now. Plenty more to come. Got some great guests coming up. So thanks again. Appreciate you taking the time. So listen, be nice.
did great, honeybee.
The Path to Authenticity is powered by Equivox. For digital marketing and web design services, visit equivox.com.